So on the advice of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and indeed of the West in general, Mongolia adopted a very radical program of reform, an attempt to shift rapidly to a much more market-oriented economic system. And my judgment, the consequences of this hasty restructuring of the economy were very unfortunate.
It's certainly true that there's a lot of poor people in Mongolia, and they do seem to be, they're not, they know that they've been sort of gotten the shaft, but somehow there's a feeling, I think for a lot of them, that this is kind of inevitable, and they don't really understand what really happened to them.
I am a PhD, and my salary is in US dollars is less than about $50 a month.
And so now about a quarter of the population, perhaps even higher today, are living in poverty.
Nobody out there offering them, okay, here's a concrete analysis of why you've been screwed.
The deterioration of living standards has led to increased stress. And the deterioration of the social services and the social safety net has meant that the country is less able to cope with this increased stress.
This is Zodol. Zodol is a 69-year-old resident of Mongolia. He lives in the nation's capital with his wife and granddaughter. He has 8 children and 23 grandchildren. Zodol is one of Mongolia's greatest wrestling coaches. He has trained Mongolian grand champions. If you combine the interest Americans have in football and the fascination with Hollywood, that would equal the Mongolian passion for wrestling. Up until this year, Zodol was a leading man in this scene. At the moment, he is a very sick man. One day, Zodol invited us to the biggest wrestling competition in the country, Naadam.
So the Zazul here is basically a second. The Zazul, this is a really interesting feature of Mongolian wrestling. I don't think there's anything like it anywhere else in the world. In bare-knuckle fighting, say in England, before the Marquess of Queensberry rules, say in the 18th, 19th century, they used to have seconds who would look after the fighter, and if he got knocked down, he might sort of give him some rum or something to try and get him to stand up and fight again. So they'll judge the wrestling, they'll stand around, they'll circle around the two wrestlers as they're wrestling, and if they feel their wrestler should speed up, they'll slap him on the bottom, which you've probably seen. Mongolian wrestling, the aim to beat an opponent, all you have to do is make them touch the ground with any other part of their body apart from their flats of their hands or the bottom of their feet. The rules make it very important to keep your balance. They make balance the most important thing. Therefore, you have this whole style, this whole system of rules and of costume that makes balance perhaps the most important part of their wrestling style.
The concept of Yadargaa is not unique to Mongolia. The same ideas exist in the West and all over the world. If your activity level and diet are balanced, you are better able to resist disease. If you have balance in your social life and thought processes, stressful life events are less damaging to your health. But lose your balance and lose your health. If an American becomes ill from a long-term lifestyle imbalance, he or she can go to a hospital for care. Balance is not as crucial because there are medicines, surgeries, and other treatments that can correct some of the damage done to the body. In Mongolia, once Yadargaa develops into a secondary disease, there are few treatment options.
In the States, where we have the money, why, we can spread $75,000 over one family. But they can't do that here. The medical system can't afford it. Because if you have 10 leukemias and you have to spend $75,000 on each one, you know, that takes care of all the money for all the other things.
But as the cost of healthcare increases and insurance coverage becomes limited, the lessons of Mongolia are more relevant than ever for Americans. The cost of preventing a disease is always less than treating it. Yadargaa is one way to prevent disease. I asked Sodal's wife if she felt that her granddaughter would eventually suffer from Yadargaa. Hopefully, Sodal's granddaughter will find a better balance than her grandfather did.